So I'm gonna get y'all involved in the conversation too, as this pertains to public safety. Now y'all know this is something I frequently speak about in dealing with inequality, privilege, keyword today, and I have a word bank of words that we can discuss. Who can remember what we talked about, what demographics means? What's demographics? Anybody remember what that word means? We talk about demographics in a community.
uh, like different places and how everybody like divided in the community.
Right. It's the cultural breakdown of different the community. Basically, what demographics means is if we have a high percentage of, say, blacks or Hispanics versus another group. So we have superior and inferior in a sense, for lack of better words. Demographics would relate the percentages of cultural backgrounds, not per se race, but I'm gonna say cultural backgrounds. What's the word inequality mean, y'all? Inequality.
Inequality is not equal.
Not equal. So, ironically, the city of Goldsboro is 61%, not minority, but black. However, you see a lot of inequality in jobs, socioeconomic status, where people live, the communities we live in. So that takes us to our next word, impoverished. What word do you hear in there that you can think that can give a key to what that word means when I say impoverished? What do you think that means?
Poverty.
Poverty. People that are
Less fortunate.
poor, less fortunate, based off of demographics, education. See, the thing about poverty, it doesn't all stem from wealth, it stems from lack of education. So what do you think this school is rated at right now, Goldsboro High School? What rating is it on the scale of A through F?
A D probably.
It's a D right now, right? On the verge of being an F. But is it because the students at this school are dumb? No. And at one point it was because of the lack of resources. So we say we had this program. We had Mr. Arnold teaching welding. What I always tell y'all, college is not always the answer for everybody. Vocational programs are a big part in the inner city because, first of all, a lot of kids are given charges at a young age. How old are some of these kids getting locked up, put in the system? What school?
15.
Even younger than that. I've heard they've locked up kids at Dillon.
Yeah.
So now they have a record. Okay? So you know there's a difference in getting your record expunged and sealed, right? If you get your record sealed, that means it can be closed until you commit another crime, and then everything that you did prior to that crime becomes open again. So if you get a kid locked up in the 5th grade, they get their record sealed. Then they go out and do something at 18. Now everything they've done from that first charge has been brought up against them, which prohibits them from getting work, prohibits them from being marketable. And if you don't have a work, what you say yesterday on Watts, you're going to do what you have to do to take care of your family. So if you have to resort to illicit activity, which in 9 times out of 10, if you can't get a legal job, you're going to have to resort back to that. Then the recidivism rate of going back to prison is very high because you're not employable because you have a previous charge. So think about this stuff, y'all. They're pushing this gang culture in our community because they know that once you get incarcerated, you now have a charge. Next word, prejudice. Now we have prejudice and racism right next to each other. Now my thoughts on the word racism is a power word. Racism can prevent an entire race or prevent an entire race from being equal based on power. Prejudice, anybody can be prejudiced, but prejudice exudes no power. I'll give you an example of prejudice versus racism. Racism, the key word race, I don't want blacks or I don't want whites to come in my business. Prejudice could be, I don't want blacks that have curly hair to come in my business. I don't want whites with green eyes. See, that's specific to a certain thing under the guise of racism. Anybody can be prejudiced, but prejudice doesn't stop or hinder anybody from being successful. Now, when I say racism, let me show you this document. How many of y'all, I've shown y'all this, and see, this goes back to the word facts. Because I used to work with a lot of guys in my old job that said, well, slavery is over. Forget about that. That's the old days. Okay? I bought my house 15 years ago. That's not that long ago, right? But the original deed and document, which is from the Register of Deeds of Wayne County, shows you how racism prevents success. It says in the last paragraph, it is expressly understood and agreed that none of the said property, my address, can be sold or leased to Negroes. Negroes is a race, okay? And that no residence can be erected thereon at cost of less than $2,500. So a lot of the people that speak against racism will say, well, hey man, you're in that house now, so why are you talking about it? Well, the reason I'm talking about it is because what if my granddaddy wanted to purchase that house and leave an inheritance to me and my family? I wouldn't have been able to do that. By law, the law in place will not allow my granddaddy to buy that property. See, the thing about the word privilege, going back to that word, let's look at it like this. We talked about this yesterday. You have a race of people, namely Europeans, that came from a continent to another continent, took from the people, the indigenous people of this continent, stole from them, and are empowered. Now let me ask you a good question. You live in a mansion all your life. The people around your mansion are living in trap houses. Are you at any point going to leave the lifestyle of living in a mansion to living in a trap house on your own free will and accord? Nobody would do that, would they?
No.
So if you're in a position of living in a mansion and now you're surrounded by more and more trap houses, and the trap house people are wanting to get in your mansion, you're going to do everything you can to prevent that from occurring, right? Right?
Yes, sir.
Nobody of a sane mind would choose the lifestyle of poverty when they have been living a lifestyle of wealth. And that's what's happening in the country. See, the color we're talking about is not black and white. The color we're talking about is green. And due to the lack of integrity, some people will take green over representing their own color. As we just talked about before we got in this class, the African American race has a problem identifying with culture because we don't know what our culture really is. You see, when we came from the west coast of Africa, we were stripped of our culture, our native tongue, put in a hodgepodge, melting pot with different tribes. That's just like saying the Bloods, the Crips, the Vice Lords, the Pyru, all these folk, Gangster Disciples, all these rival gangs are put in one boat together. Now they got beef historically, right? But you put all these gangs in one boat. Then you bring them to a country that's foreign to them. And you teach them what you want them to learn. But guess what? The roads emerged from the concrete. They never thought we would collectively come together as a group. But everything since then, since our uprising, they have done to try to sit back. So who's really the victim? Is the victim the group that's in power? Or the people that have been subjugated to racial divide, cultural divide? See, some things are systemic. What do I mean by systemic? If we talk about the human body, all the systems in the body have to work together for the body to work, right?
Yes, sir.
The smallest part of the body, we might say, is an atom, but is a cell. A group of cells makes up a tissue. A group of tissues make up a what? An organ. A group of organs make up a system. We live in a country where the cell was the slave. I'm not going to call him a slave. I'm going to call him a prisoner of war, because we were taken from our country to do labor in another foreign land. So we the cell of this country, the nucleus of this country. Off of the stripes of our back, off the labor of our ancestors, this country was built. We went to D.C. last week, or 2 weeks ago. And they literally, I already heard the stories that the slaves built D.C. But as I'm standing in the Capitol building and they're describing all the labor and we see all this marvelous work, they said this was all built by slaves. So that's something for us to be proud of. But going back to the word privilege, I think about Tamir Rice, 13-year-old man that was shot and killed in Ohio because he had a toy gun. I look at Trayvon Martin that didn't even have a weapon in his hand. I look at Michael Brown that had his hands up. I look at Alton Sterling. I look at all these people. Then I look at George Zimmerman. I look at Dylan Roof. I look at the young man who shot up in Newtown, the kids. I look at Columbine. I look at a plethora of Caucasian Americans that were armed that are still alive to this day. And you tell me that word privilege doesn't exist? Anybody that looks like myself, Henry, any one of y'all in this class is subject to get gunned down just based on your color. So when you can walk around and look in the mirror and feel safe because you are a certain color and know you straight, that's privilege. That's no fault of yours. That's no fault of theirs. It's just the way the country is built. Like I said, if you live in a mansion, are you going to voluntarily live in a trap house? No. So the fear of it is, even though the national population of African Americans is 13%, that's under 20%. That's under a fifth. Well under a fifth. Why is it that well under a fifth of the population of the nation is such an intimidation to the dominant race of this country? That should let you have, when you wake up in the morning, kings, you should wake up looking in your mirror and say, I'm a king. The facts are out there. You are less than 13 or 14% of this nation. However, you're seen as a threat. Why do you think, put it like this, let's talk street talk. If you were lame, no, I take that back. If you a player, are you intimidated by a lame? You have a girlfriend. You the man. You gonna let a lame or a nerd, you're not intimidated by that, right? Because you know you the man, right? The only way you will feel intimidated is if you feel that somebody on your level or higher, right? Then you're going to be kind of nervous, insecure, right? People are like, oh man, this dude, man, he got it going on. So think about it. Look at all these things that are done in this country to get black men locked up in prison. If you're in prison, you're not a threat, right? Because somebody's in control of you, feeding you, telling you what you have to do. So you're not a threat. Why do you think certain things are done against us? Why do you think you and your counterpart, the black man, the white man, why do you think y'all can do the same crime, but you get incarcerated, he get a slap on the wrist? Because they want to get you out of the way, because you're a threat. We've only been in this country for 400 years. Sound like a long time, but it's not really a long time. Not really a long time. And in the 400 years, now we came over here as property slaves. Think about it. In that little bit of 400 years, we have risen to the top. We hold some of the biggest seats in the world on the national stage. We're respected around the world. You see. The only imagery of Africa where we're from, they show you is the pot-bellied babies with the flies and spears and hunting lions and tigers. They don't show you the development of Africa. Why do you think that they colonized? See, that's the whole world is full of colonies. That's what you might as well say. If you look at a landmass, it's all one big piece, but then you have the lines that's drawn. Now on the local level, they call it gentrification, where they have, how many of y'all notice, you notice first step they did when they started cleaning up Lincoln Homes, right? They made it look good. I've been in Raleigh. Matter of fact, the girl I dated, when we first came in on 70, when she first came to Goldsboro, and I showed her West Haven, when they first put the vinyl siding and made it look good, she said, "Oh, those some nice apartments." I said, "That's a projects." She said, "The projects." So think about it. Why do you think they're trying to better the look of the project? Because they want you to stay there. They want you to feel so comfortable in where you are that you don't want to excel and achieve to do better. So that goes to my next word, statistics. What do you think the largest form of welfare comes in? Do you think it's public housing? A lot of people think that the projects is the biggest thing the welfare system is. When they think welfare, they think projects. They think food stamps. That is a very small, minute percentage of what welfare goes to. A larger percentage of welfare goes to farmers who are, in most cases, white. Privilege. The land that was promised to us in the form of reparation, 40 acres and a mule, that didn't come to us. That was stripped of us by way of farmers. See, you have indentured servitude where people got contracts. Well, see, the first breach of indentured servitude happened in Virginia, where a white man and two blacks fled and broke their contract. Well, the white man that fled, he only got added 3 more years to his indentured servitude. The black men were permanently indentured servants, which made the first slaves in Virginia. Privilege. So the word white privilege does exist. How would you not privilege yourself if you call yourself the founding father of this nation? When the Declaration of Independence was signed in what, 1776? We the people. What will blacks still consider? Property. We were no different than a dog. So the founding fathers that made the laws for the land were the privileged ones, not us. So for us to negate the fact that privilege exists, we would only be lying to ourselves. Let's keep it real, y'all. Let's keep it real. Not saying to be a victim, but let's know the facts. Last word. Dominant society. What's it mean to be dominant?
To rule over everything.
Say it loud.
To rule over everything.
To rule over everything. What's society?
Cities, towns,
Cultures, way of life. So to put those two words together, you could say the people that rule over everything in the world. Now, globally, I mean the whole world, people of color are the dominant society. Because every country has people of color. Asian people are yellow. People in different countries are different colors. Red, dark browns, India. How many of y'all seen an Indian person? Not an Indian, not a Native American, but a person from India. Like you see, they might have a little dot in their head. They're brown skinned, dark brown. Some of them are almost darker than some of us. In their country, they face racism and prejudice. That's why if you notice a lot of these doctors that are Indian, they're dark. In their country, they have what their color struck. The lighter. See, I used to receive a newspaper article, a circular. My name is Taj. That's an Indian name. Okay, you heard of the Taj Mahal, right? So being that my name is Taj, I guess they assumed that I was of Indian descent. They literally seeing circulars, like you get coupon things in the paper from, Carter City, whatever. They seeing advertisements, and in their advertisements, they are very specific. They say, I am looking for a spouse for my daughter with green eyes, light skin, a doctor, a dentist, preferably, or a lawyer. They are very specific about what their requirements are for their children. It's almost like they still have arranged marriages. That's prejudice. Because even though they are the same race, they still have a prejudice towards what they feel it is to be successful, based off of perception. We face that same problem in America. You ever heard of what they call the house nigger and the field nigger? I'm going to say it like it said, not Negro. They called them niggers back then. Okay? The house Negro was the one that was more or less more pleasing to the eye, light skin. And the reason he was light skin is because the slave master had sex with his slaves and bore a child. That's why they wanted the child in the house, because they knew that was their child, but they still had them work for them. See, that's how wicked the system was.